start with the unfolded, and then folded is removed at KR. Yeah, this is the removal for use for trafficking to other parts of the cell where the proteins will be used. Yeah, and this one is the Ka for the aggregation. So unfolded protein are also assumed to aggregate irreversibly at rate Ka. Yeah, is not reversible, is unreversibly. So we are not concerned here with the source of energy for this driving, but it is critical to appreciate that free energy is being expended in this process. So one of the keyword is we're talking about the spontaneous. Yeah. So the spontaneous flow or driving indicates that indeed energy or free energy is being expended. The system not in equilibrium compared to this one. Yeah. So the aggregation. So from here, this is what we like to study more on the protein stability. So please remember again some of the terminologies that I'm going to use it either in terms of denaturation or renaturation. So you have to be very quick to differentiate between these two. So what is that? If you look at here, the normal protein denaturate, it will become the loss of its activity, and it can be renaturated into a normal protein. So how can we link this phenomena or this mechanism with the mathematical relationship? Yeah, that is something that we must always remember. We need to talk about free energy, which is actually delta G. Yeah, I think previous slide I mentioned about free energy. So always think about delta G or Gibbs free energy, meaning that there must be some changes inside there. Then we also have the enthalpy change. Okay, so when you talk about enthalpy, what can you relate to? Yeah, because if you remember from our discussion previously, it always relate to the chemical bonds or interaction. So for enthalpy change, it relate to what? Is it van der Waals interaction, or is it relate to hydrogen bonds? Yeah, this is something that we're going to discuss shortly. Then when we talk about thermodynamics, you must always remember about the positive and negative, right? And last one will be the changes in entropy, delta S. I also mentioned this one from our previous slide. We're talking about the randomness, yeah, change in entropy. So when randomness, there is another keyword which we can talk about, disorder. So you can think about which one is in terms of disorder or randomness. Right. Whatever that we discuss, we must always look at the condition. So we're going to talk about under native condition. Yeah. So now there is a question here. Under native conditions, is the folded form of a protein in a higher or lower free energy state than the unfolded state? I know that I think you can guess the answer, but how to explain it is actually another different story. Yeah, so meaning that from our discussion, from the slides, information, and definitely you have to read, yeah, in order for you get from a different perspective. Only then you can explain this question. It's very straightforward question, but to answer it, you need some extra information. Okay. So why this protein stability is very important? Why people have to study this? Yeah, of course, there are so many reasons. We saw that previously. It relates to the diseases. Yeah, if there is a malfunction of the certain protein, maybe due to the what you call this, the nature of the protein itself. Okay. So first, of course, provide information on the basic thermodynamic of the folding process. So this is practically very fundamental, but the fundamental or theoretical information can lead to application. So we know as well that increased protein stability may be a multi-billion dollar value. We're talking about food, how you want to preserve food, the protein, yeah. Then drug, we want to study the drug, and of course, if we go on and go on, talking about more into the biotechnology, and in the future, people start to work on the peptides or even protein drugs. So definitely, it has a very big or major impact in the study of thermodynamics of protein, or the development of very sensitive techniques. So other than maybe people that more related to biochemistry or even biology, but it also can lead to some innovation, yeah, to the physical chemists or even to the physicists. Yeah, we're talking about the biophysics. So for example, the development of technique to measure protein. This one, for example, is the differential scanning calorimetry. If you still remember calorimetry, the bomb calorimeter, way back then, I think you in the first semester, you work on that. And later on, they have many protein engineering. This is, for example, site-directed mutagenesis, then have directed evolution. So everything is related to the understanding of this protein stability that can lead to a new function or a better function if you want to use it for a certain application, right? So come back to throwback, not come back, throwback. This is the what I mentioned previously. When we talk about delta G, the changes in Gibbs free energy. Now, we always know that when we talk about spontaneous, it will give you the negative value, right? So negative delta G means decrease in free energy for a process, meaning that it is more favorable to the system. Okay, and second information, reaction would go spontaneously in that direction. But if you remember about the equation, delta G is equal to delta H minus T temperature delta S, meaning that in order for you to get this negative value, it also rely on the other parameter. Now, what we like to see here more is what kind of interaction that lead to the enthalpy. So enthalpy or H normally reflects the number and kind of chemical bonds. Okay, so I just read from this because it's very important, including non-covalent interactions like salt links, hydrogen bonds, and van der Waals interaction in reactants and product. So it's both. So when it starts to enter, so if you remember back when we discussed about the enzyme activity, yeah, it always related to the interaction between the amino acid in the protein or in an enzyme with the substrate or reactants, and of course once you get the product. So it all plays a very huge and important role. So other than that, making bonds or interaction give negative delta H, and this is the favorable as well. So vice versa, if you do not want to make or you want to cut the bonds or interaction. And delta S, change in entropy, I mentioned before, we're talking about randomness. We increase in randomness, meaning that you give the positive delta S. Okay, increase in disorder, so same randomness. So this is something from what you have learned before, then try to relate to the current. Now, what I would like you to find out, if we see that this delta H is related to like non-covalent interaction, yeah, example, and delta S related to what kind of interaction between the protein and the substrate, or even inside that. So that is your information that you need to find out. Change in entropy is related to what kind of interaction or bonds, yeah. So this is just to give you an overview again about what's going on. We know that amino acid sequence determines the 3D structure, and I think you have learned this one maybe with Dr. Bimo before. Yeah, the sequence specifies the conformation, so it's very important to know from uh, amino acid 1 until, if it is 200, until 200. So we need to know. So people who's doing site-directed mutagenesis, for example, they will find out certain amino acid that they can change. Either they want to increase the stability, or they want to increase the activity. We're talking about the catalytic activity, or even they can do the site-directed mutagenesis, or basically to mutant it, so that it will get the different function, or even to kill it. Yeah. So no other information needed for protein to fold to its native or active 3D dimensional structure. So okay, for example, the ribonucleus, the amino acid to 3D structure. Now, when it folds, there is another important condition where we talk about the native condition, and this one we refer to the physiological condition. And I think I have mentioned it before from a previous slide, that physiological is related to wherever that you find the enzyme, our body, on the surface of a soil, underneath the soil, volcano, or Antarctica, is all related to its physiological conditions. Yeah, and under this condition, it will normally fold spontaneously. Okay. Now, our discussion is talking about thermodynamics, so that's why I have to shift into the delta G. Delta G folding, yeah, results from a near balance of opposing large forces. Okay, so it sounds creepy a bit. Yeah, what is that? So let's have a look. I'm just going to give you an overview, and later on you must discuss the information that leads to the what I mentioned here. Folding is entropically unfavorable because it minimizes the dispersal of energy and adds order to the system. Yeah, so that is the first information. But however, the summation of the hydrophobic effect, hydrogen bonding, van der Waals forces or interaction is greater in magnitude than the loss of entropy. Yeah, so this kind of forces, basically all this kind of interaction. So meaning that protein folding is therefore a spontaneous process because the sign of delta G is negative. Why? Because of the magnitude that I mentioned just now. Yeah, so delta H magnitude must be bigger than the loss of entropy. So when delta G is negative, what will happen? The process of chemical reaction proceeds spontaneously in the forward direction. Okay, so I just add another important information: forward direction. We can say it's negative, 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 but which way? Forward or reverse? So forward direction. Yeah, because I'm leading to this discussion. And be careful with this one. We have the delta G unfolding. Another one is delta G folding. Okay, I always like my students to elaborate based on your understanding. And my suggestion is always choose one, then you think about it and you can discuss with your friend. Yeah, and lead another one, maybe you can heard it from your friend. So basically all of you, two of you, so you can discuss about this. One focus on delta G unfolding, which is actually positive because it's larger than zero under negative condition, and another friend is working on the delta G folding, which is actually negative, yeah, less than zero under negative condition. So you discuss your points. Okay, when delta G is positive, the process proceeds spontaneously, but in reverse. You see, when we put the direction delta G is positive, then the process proceeds spontaneously, but in reverse direction. But when delta G is zero, the process is already equilibrium. What else? With no net charge taking place over time. That is another important information, because if there is any perturbation, then either it's going to give you a negative or positive. Then you will see your protein as well. Either it's going to be denatured or renatured. Yeah, it can be spontaneous, but in which direction? Okay. So from here, the delta G folding, uh, the change in free energy between the unfolded structure and folded structure basically is very small. Okay, it's because proteins are in equilibrium. For example, in this one, between natured and denatured, we can say that is in equilibrium. But because of the delta G folding, or delta G is what you call this folding, very small. We are talking about in between 5 to 10 kilocalorie per mole. It's very small. So meaning that not significant population of unfolded proteins. Yeah, very small differences. Meaning probably is only lost 1 or 2 hydrogen bond. Okay, might still shift equilibrium for folded state to unfolded form of protein. But again, this is the information that I used before. The delta G folding result from the near balance of opposing large forces. So think back, when it is too small, either it's significant or not. Okay, meaning there might be some shift in the equilibrium, but if it is too small, then it can still remain in the native state. Okay, this is the information similar before that normally when you discuss, you may like to use this information. Now, this is what we discussed before, slightly detailed. Delta G folding result from many contributions. Particularly, if you want to fold it, you must have some favorable interaction. So in order to fold, the favorable interaction normally comes from the enthalpy changes. Yeah. For example, in this case, we put it the van der Waals, for example, van der Waals packing interaction. You may have heard about interaction, but we can also introduce as a packing interaction. Yeah. And then what else? The hydrophobic effect, the particularly from the water entropy. Now you start to get confused. What is water entropy? Because water is normally have a very random movement in the protein in order to stabilize it. Okay. What else? Electrostatic effects. Yeah, the hydrogen bond also normally come from what you call this water, maybe. Yeah. Then gain of protein-protein interaction also help, particularly from its hydrogen bond. Yeah, hydrogen bond from protein-protein interaction. You have to remember, protein sometimes interact with the protein. Okay, and later on, the solvation, dissolution of charge residues. We can also discuss about what you call these yeah, salt bridges here. Okay, steric factors. There are many contribution so that the protein can fold nicely. Yeah, favorable interaction. Not to fold. So there is another one. Normally related to unfavorable interaction. Yeah, for example, the protein uh, protein conformational entropy keep changing. So again, entropy due to the hydrophobic effect. And when we talk about the conformational entropy, there are so many degrees of freedom and flexibility, meaning that there are too many changes in the uh, we know the enzyme have the leads maybe move too fast, and then the other side have too flexible, making that it is not in the right position or right conformation. Yeah, degree of freedom become very loose. Okay, it may come also from the loss of protein water hydrogen bonding, because water, I mentioned before, sometimes help to stabilize the protein. Without water, that's why if it is sometimes, if it is too less water molecules, from our research we saw that it is below than 10%, then you do not have the what we call the essential water layer inside the enzyme or the protein, and the protein start to shrink a bit, then the activity start to change due to the changes in the degree of freedom, or the what we call the conformational. We can always take ourselves for example. What happens if we do not have enough water? Yeah, so temperature will slightly increase. So maybe it's something related to the body function, the liquid function in our body. Okay. So we can also look at from here the Gibbs energy and the reaction coordinate from the unfolded, and then we always have the transition state. Yeah. Okay, and then this is where the delta G folding and also the unfolding. Yeah, so in order it to unfold, it have to be very high energy, and native is always at the lowest energy, and this is where we talk about the delta G. Okay, folding and unfolding, right? So from this understanding, I would like to show you a video about, just to make sure that you have the idea what I'm talking about. Yeah. Because
Prof, video ni ada suara ke? Sebab tak dengar apa-apa.
Sorry, you all tak dengar apa-apa?
Tak.
Yes.
Okay, it has the saya cuba sekali lagi. Dengar tak kali ni?
Tak.
Tak dengar.
Tak dengar. Just a moment. Now dengar tak?
Tak dengar.
Tak dengar juga. Okay, I don't know why this time tak dengar langsung. Alright, I can post this video later on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, doctor.
Alright, just a moment. Okay, if not, then I explain to you while I play the video. Okay, yeah? Okay, so this is actually wait. Right, this is what we talk about the genome. Yeah, I was in the Malaysian Genome Institute as a director over there. So this is what we are talking about. When you enter the information, then we start to simulate. So of course, this is what you have learned about the protein synthesis, the RNA. Yeah, and then it gives you the protein, and this is how when it is start folding. Okay, so of course there are the what you call this helix and beta turn, and this is actually a resemble from amino acid, the long change, and then when you fold it, yeah. So this is, for example, if we want to do the mutation at 6 and 8 position, yeah. So meaning that this is what we can say if we change certain selected part, then we can also change the what you call this, the protein. Now you look at this beta sheet that now is slightly conserved in this particular area. Yeah. So meaning that based on this, we can basically fold many different proteins, and it may also be used in for what you call this. Yeah, this is what they call as when they start to design certain molecule for different application. This is, for example, a flu virus, very similar to coronavirus. So if they want to work on the what you call this vaccine, this is the example. So they have to encapsulate and release. Yeah, and this is the latest technology. For example, if working on the material, we can also now make it something like kind of a protein. Yeah. Now I understand it is so difficult to be a translator. Whatever that she said and whatever that I said just now is not all 100% match. It's not a direct translation. Okay, it's more like kind of the understanding. All right. Okay, so sorry about that, but because last time I thought it works, and in fact when I played, I put the volume full, and it's like I'm talking as well from my speaker. So don't you know why you basically cannot hear that? Eh? It's okay. It's a try. Now, 10:30. Now, when we talk about protein stability, we talk about the delta G just now. We also need, yeah, I did mention about the balance. So now we need also to know what is the net protein stability. By the way, can you hear me clear now? Because I changed the setup of my speaker just now. So is it okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Clear.
So the net stability or the net protein stability is defined as the difference in free energy between the native and denatured state. Yeah. So other than that, we can also say the net stability of protein, we mentioned previously, is quite small and is the difference between two large opposing forces. And what is that two large what you call this, the opposing forces. Okay, so from the previous slide as well, you look at the reaction coordinate between the delta G, yeah, and then we also have the delta G folding and unfolding. Now, N is Gn, N is nature, or native, sorry, and this one is the unfolding, which is the unnatured. So this is also what you saw from the previous one. So from here, various stabilize the folded native state of protein structures, atomic or group interaction. This is what we saw just now. Hydrophobic electrostatic, what else? Hydrogen bonding, van der Waals, and disulfide. What you call this? And the unfolded state is dominated by entropic and non-entropic free energies. So there are some of the information we have seen or discussed slightly earlier. Now, the free energy may be readily, or you can basically calculate from the following mathematical equation. This is very quite straightforward. Yeah, K is equal to the concentration of N over the unfolded. Okay, the native folded is unfolded, meaning that we can find the Fn, the fraction that have been folded via Fn over 1 minus Fn. So we also know that delta G is also equal to the, if you remember, the standard is delta H minus T delta S. Yes, but now we can convert into the Gn and Gu is then equal to minus RT ln K. So delta G is also equal to minus RT ln K. So based on this, we can solve the equation. That's why I mentioned, please elaborate the statement above. Yeah, decreasing the energy of the folded state or increasing the energy of the unfolded state have the same effect on delta G. So this is the kind of a question, you know the answer, but I'm sure you may have the difficulty to arrange the information. Okay, so I also put the information below here so that it may help you in order to elaborate the statement here. Okay, the all information basically is in this slide or in the previous slide. Yeah, because we have seen the delta G folding and delta G unfolding, either it is bigger or smaller than 0. But how you want to put on your own words to match this statement. Okay, you know that when we get into slightly deeper in these protein thermodynamics, I also at the same time give you the basic information here and try to throw back. I mentioned just now from the previous information what you have learned before that you might think you will never use it again. So combination of the protein and thermodynamics before you shall be able to explain this statement, right? I also mentioned so many times there are keywords, key points, important information. So you grab all and put it in under to elaborate this statement. Yeah. Okay. So if we can see from here, the stability of the folded state, we can of course measure the protein stability. We use several equipment, yeah, something similar to the bomb calorimeter. So from there we can measure the energy difference between the unfolded and folded states. I mentioned just now before that the differences is very small, between 5 to 10 kilocalorie per mole. If you jogging, I think about 100 meters, then you can already burn about 5 to 10 kilocalorie. Yeah. Oh no, that one is calorie, not kilocalorie. Okay, I cannot remember whether kilocalorie or calorie. Yeah, well, basically to burn 100 calorie is not that easy, especially during PKP. Okay, here are some other information, because if you want to do the calculation in aqueous solution and room temperature, so always remember when we discuss about delta G, there is a component T there, yeah, minus RT ln K. Okay, T meaning you must always mention at what temperature. So back to the physiological condition, what temperature it is, you must put the same temperature. So for example, K is about 2 times 10 the power of 7. So meaning that the ratio of folded and unfolded is about 2 times 10 power of 7 ratio to 1. So it is very small. That's why it is spontaneously favor to the folded system, unless there is something going on, either it's through the genetic, either due to the extreme condition, we're talking about pH or temperature, then the ratio start to change. Yeah, because otherwise, that's why we said that it's too small. That's why it is actually very stable. So if we look at other example, where we look at this, K as the equilibrium constant, if the ratio of the forward F and then the reverse is U, then the rate constant K is equal to Kf over Ku. Yeah. So where you want to use this information, remember the first slide or the second slide that we discussed is always related to the forward and reverse. Okay, remember that slide. So you have to go back to that slide. I think maybe slide number 17 or 18, I cannot remember. Okay, or maybe 15. In your handout, maybe 15, 16, because I add videos from the previous one. So if a protein refolds spontaneously at the rate of just now, per second, 1 per second, its rate of spontaneously unfolding under the same condition will be 10 minus 7, power of minus 7, meaning that the half day will take about 80 days. So it's very long. Yeah. So this suggests that unfolding state will only be in the transient or intermediate. It's very fast. Then it will start to change to either either aggregate, either unfold or back to the folding. And this is what I mentioned just now. Any perturbation, then we can also make use of it to measure the unfolding of protein. So for example, if we want to study that, we just give a certain denaturing agent like urea, then we start to measure the changes. Same as well if you want to use pH or you want to use the temperature. So there's always ways of doing so. Right. This is what I mentioned. There are so many different techniques if you want to use, but normally we highly recommend at least at least 3 methods. Yeah, in order for you to confirm. We can look at the absorbance, because there are some like trypsin, tyrosine, that we can check the differences. The most common, they use fluorescence, the difference in emission and maximum and intensity, because some what you call this, it gives you a fluoresce, then the fluorescence spectroscopy can be used to measure the absorbance. Normally we can use the UV. CD, this is a circular dichroism, where we study, we can study the alpha helix and beta sheet, and also the loop, so that we can suggest this their second and third secondary and tertiary structure. Of course, NMR, this is what I mentioned just now, the DSC, differential scanning calorimetry or calorimeter, but the one that we have in the department normally is still in a micro. That may not be suitable for protein, because we just need only a little. So in MGI, last time we bought the nano DSC. Yeah, so no, that one is isotope. Yeah, I pun dah lupa dah. It's 10 years ago. Yeah, but it's a nano size, so you just can put a single drop, then you can study the changes. Okay, and of course there are many other ways, including you measure the differences in the catalytic activity when you did the the chemical reaction. Yeah. Right. So we're going to discuss a bit on the denaturing proteins, okay, particularly at extreme pH, high and low pH denature, but not all proteins, because it depends on amino acid and also the interaction. When I talk about the amino acid, it depends on the interaction, how they can very preserve, yeah, and of course it depends on their physiological condition. So basic idea is that the net charge on the protein due to the titration of all the ionizing group leading to intramolecular charge repulsion. So the information is related to how you want to conduct the activity. Okay. Forget to record. When I stop, I forget to record. Alright. Okay. The basic idea when we talk about this just now is to make sure that the net charge on the protein due to the titration. So that's why when you use the titration into the DSC, yeah, then it will start record the changes, which is sufficient because you need only very little to overcome the attractive forces. Remember, we're talking about previously opposing charges. Yeah. So now, when we talk about these attractive forces, mostly the hydrophobic and the dispersive, like that, what you call these van der Waals, yeah, resulting in at least partial unfolding of the protein. So that is actually what you need to know. It's a partial unfolding first, because it takes it's not like abruptly, yeah, protein will what you call this unfold, because we want to understand the mechanism, so we need to see how it start to unfold. That's why we call it partially unfold first. So in a computer simulation, I also did mention that we can look what happened in maybe up to millisecond. We cannot see in one second, 1 minute is very costly when we talk about the computational time. So from there, the presence of a specific counter ion binding leads to formation of a compact intermediate state. This is what they call it as the molten globule. This is actually a substantial secondary structure. Yeah, little or no tertiary structure, relatively compact size compared to the native state. Yeah, so what is actually molten globule? This is what we're going to discuss in our lecture today. So before that, we still have a look the denaturing proteins. If it is from the extreme temperature, we can have two, cold denaturation or thermal denaturation. So it is actually slightly different mechanism. But you know that it is still controversial, meaning that people still try to understand what's going on here. So heat can be used to disrupt hydrogen bonds, yeah, and non-polar hydrophobic interaction. Why? Yeah, this occurs because heat increases the kinetic energy. You must always remember that. We discussed also before. And then causes the molecule to vibrate so rapidly and maybe violently that the bonds are disrupted. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, the thermal denaturation. Of course, one of the most famous example that we normally use is the protein in eggs denature and coagulate during cooking. That is very clear. Yeah. Other foods are cooked to denature the proteins to make it easier for enzyme to digest. What kind of other application? Medical supplies and instruments normally are sterilized by heating to denature proteins in bacteria or maybe virus and thus destroy the bacteria. So it's a very simple application that we need to know. Of course, people say that, oh, you know, we sterilize, we want to kill bacteria, but the understanding, you denature the proteins. Yeah. Same as well, in cold denaturation, is slightly different. It become conserved, then basically it just have no function. Yeah, that is a slightly different. Okay, this part I'm going to talk more about what we did in our research. I think way back 15 years ago, but we still continue. This is part of my inaugural lecture. You know, when you get a professorship, this is the ultimate presentation that we have to present to the university. So particularly, I link this one with my mathematical background, what we call as a bit on the mathematical biology to understand the structure. I just like to read because this is one of my favorite quote from Feynman, the Nobel laureate in '65. If you were to name the most powerful assumption of all, which leads on and on in an attempt to understand life, it is it is that all things are made of atoms. So that's why we, as a chemist, this is what we need to understand, the atoms that leads to all the interaction and so on. And that everything that living things do can be understood in terms of the jiggling and wiggling of atoms. This is what I just mentioned just now. If you give the kinetics energy, then what happens to the system? You're going to break it. The molecules start to vibrate. Yeah, that's why it jiggle, wiggle. Then it may do something else. To those who do not know mathematics, it is difficult to get across a real feeling as to the beauty, the deepest beauty of nature. So if you want to learn about nature, to appreciate nature, it is necessary to understand the language that she speaks in. So that's why we discuss a bit on the thermodynamic. It have a lots of mathematical equation. Even what I share with you in our subject or in our topic is very limited to the very basic. But if you go into other books, of course, they will go the detail. Yeah. This is the example what we normally do. We like to see the torsion. Yeah, the torsion meaning that how you can what you call this pusing, and then the interaction between the atoms, the bond interaction, the non-interactive, and we see that what we discuss in protein, non-bonded interaction play a major role in order to stabilize either its folding or unfolding of the protein. So what we did, okay, this is a very simple thing. We know that an egg protein can denature or unravel in several ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. So this is what we mentioned before. If it's too cold or too hot, it will untangle like Mi Mama. It's useless, but of course Mi Mama is so good. I pun belum breakfast lagi, so looking at this Mi Mama dengan telur mata atas ni macam wow. Yeah, but on this part, translucent egg white, heat changes. By heat changes, it changes it from soluble form to a solid white mass like this. So this is what people like to study either through the computational, or we can also use the NMR, and this is what I mentioned just now about the thermodynamic stability. So what we did was, last time we run the molecular simulation of T1 lipase. This one T1 lipase, this one L1 lipase. This lipase is actually a thermophilic lipase where we got it from Sungai Kelah, if I'm not mistaken, the hot spring. So it active about 70 degrees Celsius. So we want to understand what happened at higher temperature. From there, we can see it has a lower thermal stability at very high temperature. And this is one of the important message, higher accessibility to the solvent. What that means? Meaning that the solvent able to penetrate into the core of the protein, and this is when it start to denature. Yeah, because otherwise the protein always try to protect. Not too many solvent molecules can enter. That's why they have a what you call this water molecule inside. More open and mobile structure. You can see the expansion. This one is actually at 300 Kelvin, 400, 500 Kelvin. You can see it is now becoming very unstable. Yeah, despite. And this side we can see the amino acid. So meaning that the amino acid can still fluctuate. I cannot remember what is this. It's too small as well. It can highly fluctuate, meaning that certain amino acid is already moving very fast. Okay, losing the structures partially, I mentioned as well in our theoretical just now. We start to look at the partially unfolding, meaning that certain part is already unfold at 500 degrees Celsius, and of course, proteins still try to maintain its system. There are some part is still compact in the middle, but the outer part is already start to open. This is how we do to make it fast at high temperature so that we can see the movement of the lead. Why? Because there we can understand which part that we should do the mutation in order to increase the stability of the protein, yeah, by looking at the which amino acid from here. So at the end, the conclusion, thermostability correlated with higher flexibility rather than increased rigidity. So we can see that the flexibility, particularly the outer space, is actually higher compared to rigidity because still protein try to conserve its structure. Now, okay, we take a break for 5 minutes. Okay, we cannot take that long because I also just realized that we missed 2 hours lecture because you have, I think, Christmas and New Year on the Friday, on Friday, and that was before me with Dr. Bimo. So when I get, instead of having 14 hours, I just get 12 hours. So I try to compact my discussion. Yeah. Okay, so take a break. We start back at 11. right, welcome back. Just take a break. I also try to make sure, hopefully there is another video that we can play. Yeah, we can play, but hopefully the sound is clear to all of you. Okay, just now I mentioned about there is possibility of using temperature, yeah, and from there we can study the unfolding. But of course, there is another chemical way that we normally people do in what you call this to study the unfolding. Okay. So proteins are denatured by treatment with alkaline or acid. Can also use oxidizing or reducing agents and certain organic solvent as well. So this is all what they call as the denaturants. So interesting among denaturing agents are those that affect the secondary and tertiary structure without affecting the primary structure. So this is certain kind of denaturing agents that normally being selected. Yeah, because if you use acid alkali, it will disrupt the primary structure as well. So again, it only affects the secondary structure as tertiary, but not the primary structure without affecting. So the agents must frequently use for this purpose. Urea, example, and guanidinium chloride. So normally it's called GuHCl. Yeah. So the effect of denaturants such as urea, they normally use a very high concentration. Yeah. Look at this, about 8 molar. And guanidinium hydrochloride is about 6 molar. 6